This is a quick overview for project plan. It's the step that you're going to do in creating your project plan. You've already done most of the heavy lifting. So primarily it's a matter of pulling things from the other documents that you've created into one central cohesive format. So the first thing you do is you start out with your project name, the dates that it'll run, and the team members. In our case, we also have non-active team members in case there are people that don't do their portion, and the date that it's submitted for grading. But these would be the items that would go into any project plan. Then the next page is your table of contents, and it breaks down the different areas that you're going to have involved. Then you'll have your project plan signature. So this is all of the primary or stakeholders that are involved. So the direct members of the team and maybe the supervisor that's overlooking the project itself. Once the project is complete, all primary stakeholders sign off on their approval, and that indicates that the project meets the standards set by the team as a quality deliverable. In the introduction, you're putting in the purpose of your plan, success criteria, goals, objectives, any background information that's pertinent, and the approach that you're taking for development of the project, how the project fits into the bigger picture. So these things were taken from your project definition or your project definition document. Chances are in a lot of projects, that document will go back and forth with changes being made until it reaches a consensus and everyone approves. Well, you don't want to include all of that, so this is the area that gets that all nice and cleaned up. Then it moves into what's within scope, what's out of scope, what's your budget, what are the risks you need to consider, what are the dates, the milestones throughout the project, so that you can make sure that you're on schedule, things are going as needed. The milestones can be broken down by completed tasks. It can be broken down by budget deliverables. I'm going to give this draft and then you give me more money. I'm going to give this draft, you give me more money. And it can work that way. It just depends on the project. Then you have team assignments and their roles. So what is this person doing? What are they responsible for? Are there groups of people that are going to be responsible for specific deliverables? So how that plays out all goes in here. Any assumptions and constraints, so things that you assume will go well, and any things that are in the planning that are going to be somewhat restrictive that you need to take into consideration. Those would be your constraints. Your project management approach, again, this is pulled from your WBS, your PS, and your PDD. Your project timeline, project roles and responsibilities. So these are that higher level. They're not necessarily by person. They can be by theme and how things are connected. Update schedule. I should have said updated schedule. So if there is some breakdown that's different than the original state. How you're going to change. What is your plan? Usually it's any changes have to be approved in writing by all primary stakeholders or by designated stakeholders or something like that, so that if there is a change, everyone is aware. And then along a similar vein, what is your communication plan? How often are you getting together as a team? What is your goal as a team to be able to effectively move from step to step within the project? Are you meeting weekly? Are people posting ideas to a shared team area? how are the expectations set up? And that would be that communication plan. It was touched on in your project definition document, but both the change management plan and the communication plan are primarily fleshed out within your project plan. When you're done with the project, what are you keeping? What are you responsible for delivering? What documentation do you need to keep for the project? And that's called your project close. So how are you going to track how the project close? How do you know when you're done? And how do you know what needs to be adjusted before the project is run another time? And that would be your documentation notes. Your appendix, you have a variety of different appendix areas, and rather than go through them page by page, I'll come back to the table of contents so we can see all of them. So your change management process is any changes that have been put into place, they become a part of your project plan so that everyone can see that documentation. Your closing document, so whatever those closing notes are, those would be your closing documentation, and that would be Appendix B. The order doesn't matter. For the purposes of this class, I have Appendix C, which is your team charter, and Appendix D, which is your project definition document. Those two are specific for this course so that we can see how you started and then how it was brought to fruition. So primarily, the majority of materials were developed from within your preliminary items. Just a few extra things that you're going to be adding in order to flesh out. If we come back to the modules area in the class, and let me make this smaller so you can actually see the whole thing. So from within the modules area, I can pull up the project plan example document, and that lets you see what another team did a while back. So they have their information. So for theirs, they did what they called a Facebook project. So they built the number of likes. We created a new Facebook page, and they built it, and their goal was to set 400 or to accomplish 400 likes on the page by the end of the term, and they did succeed. They were able to reach that goal. And it comes down and includes their details and who was responsible for what, both individually and as a team. It includes the Gantt chart for their project. And it doesn't include any closing documentation. We did go over it in class, but it wasn't added to this. But that is the process so that you can see how a project plan is put into place. When you create your project plan, especially the first one for your first project, you'll get a better idea for how the pieces fit together. Let me know if you have questions.